We're going to be talking to Liz Clary. She's a home birth midwife from Rose City Midwifery. And I'm inviting her to come join us right now. Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. We're glad to have you here with us today. Look at your
Yeah, thanks
beautiful
for having
plants.
me. Yeah, I've had a busy week of a birth and lots of prenatal and postpartum visits, so I was a little bit nervous. I wasn't going to be able to make it, so I'm glad that this all worked out.
Oh, we're so glad you're here. We're going to disappear and let you do your thing. So
Okay.
everybody, this is Liz.
So my name is Liz Clary. I own a home birth practice in Portland called Rose City Midwifery. I started Rose City in December of 2016 after working at a busy birth center called Alma Midwifery for several years, and decided it was time to start my own thing and really make my mark in the birth world the way that I envisioned. So it's been really wonderful, and love all of my clients, my families, and just have truly the best job ever. Everyone says that, but it is really true. So I thought I'd start out just by telling you all a little bit about the midwifery model of care. So, what does make home birth midwifery different than seeking a hospital-based provider? Why would you consider doing a home birth versus just kind of that standard choice that most people choose? So our model of care is really based on strong relationship. So with all of my clients, I form a really amazing bond that helps us facilitate a really beautiful sense of trust and a good rapport throughout the whole prenatal period, so that when I am attending the birth, it feels very natural. I feel like my clients are really able to let go and sink into the birth process, knowing that I'm there, my sis is there, and my student midwife are there, knowing their wishes, knowing what's important to them, and they can just totally let go and go into their birth zone, which is what they need to be doing at that point. Midwifery care is also very holistic in that we're not just looking at what are your physical symptoms, but obviously how are things going for you emotionally, socially, what's going on in your job, your family, how is all of this impacting your pregnancy, and how can we be supportive to you in tackling any issues that you might be facing. And just carving out a lot of time to make sure we're addressing the person holistically as a whole. Midwifery care is also very evidence-based. I think that there is obviously a lot of misconceptions around home birth and what it looks like and who we are as home birth midwives. But I actually really love research. I love evidence. I love bringing that to my clients and making sure that they feel really well educated, be that genetic screening options or gestational diabetes or group beta strep. There's so many different topics in pregnancy where there is a lot of evidence and research to look to and make choices that feel best for you after you have educated yourself, after you've talked through different options with your midwives. We're also not evidence limited is a term that comes up nowadays, and that, it's important to me that my clients know what the recommendations would be were they to be in the hospital system. I think that that's crucial, and knowing, you've sought out a different option here, but I want you to know if you were in the hospital system, they would be recommending X, Y, and Z right now. And then letting them understand maybe what alternatives we can explore, or me speaking honestly as their provider to say, I'd really recommend an ultrasound, or I am having a little bit of concern about whatever is coming up. I think that that's really crucial as well. There's choice, but I'm also transparent in my experience level with whatever the risk factor is, and how I think we can best keep things safe. And then letting people, ultimately make choices that feel best for them. It's also very personalized. So, um, I think that a lot of people who birth through the hospital system the first time around or second time around, et cetera, and then seek out home birth midwife, they're really hoping for that midwife to see them as an individual. So oftentimes when you're going to a doctor's office, or sometimes, unfortunately, even the midwives in the hospital, they just have a short amount of time they can spend with you. They're seeing so many people each day. They may remember you, they may not. You may have met them before at a previous appointment, you may have not. Um, and it can feel like you're kind of going through this assembly line situation where you're not being seen for your own unique circumstances. You're not given enough time to really feel heard. And so the beauty of seeking out a home birth midwife is that we often practice with really, low numbers of births per month, per year, and we know our clients very well. It's really important to us that they are seen as an individual. So I thought I would just kind of run through some different questions that I typically get. I offer free hour-long consultations. Historically, in my career, I have done those in person, but obviously with everything with COVID right now, I'm not doing that anymore, but am doing phone and video chats with people who are interested in choosing a home birth or thinking about a home birth. So yeah, I think the most common question, and obviously the most important question that comes up is this safe? Is it reasonable to have a home birth? And that is a great question. Obviously, the answer is different from person to person. Community midwifery is based on the belief that women, birthing people who are low risk, who do not possess any significant complicated health history before they were pregnant, and carry out what we call a normal, low risk, what I call boring, which is good, pregnancy, should be given the option to have their baby at home. I am, like I said before, I do hour-long prenatal visits, and that is a part of how I keep birth and the pregnancy really safe, is that I am taking a lot of time to hear from these people. How are you feeling in your body? Do you have any concerns? Let me do a really thorough physical assessment. Let me listen really well. And I think I'm, overall, almost always able to catch problems before they become a big problem, because I am just being very attentive and very open to what nature is going to throw at us. I'm also available to my clients 24/7 between visits. And I think that that's a really important facet of midwifery care, in that we are able to sorry, I was looking at the clock and now I lost my thought. We're able to, just make sure that if anything comes up in between, that they are able to get a hold of me really quickly here. I also bring all the standard medications that they carry at the hospital, in terms of ones that would control bleeding in the postpartum. I carry resuscitation equipment for the baby, and oxygen, IV fluids. Another obvious misconception about home birth is that we just are kind of bringing ourselves and hoping and praying that everything goes normal, and that's really not the way that it goes. I bring a ton of equipment with me, and expertise and skills, and just really believing that birth is typically normal for, again, those low risk pregnancies and low risk individuals, but knowing that when working with nature, we always need to be very, very prepared and able to address any complications that arise. And then, another important part, obviously, is being able to identify when a situation, say a birth, has changed from low risk to high risk or concerns, where we are feeling like it's yeah, it's not reasonable. It's not safe to be at home anymore. The baby's giving us a sign, or the birthing parent's body is giving us a sign that, we need to move to the hospital where there are more tools, that maybe at that point we're actually desiring instead of hoping to avoid. Um, I wanted to just talk a little bit about, what's so great about home birth, because I think that some people think, I had my baby at the hospital before and it was actually fine, and I don't have any like birth trauma. That's really great. There's obviously other people who would be on the opposite end of that spectrum, where they did have a traumatic birth or just a birth experience that didn't feel very empowering, or a prenatal experience that didn't feel very empowering. And so they're really hoping for something different. I think that birthing at home is wonderful because it is comfortable for people. This is where we live. This is where our pets are, our partner, our other kids. It's just the natural place where we know how to unwind. And the birth process is really dependent on, being able to let go again and unwind. I also think, having the midwives there that you know and trust. So again, that relationship-based care, you're in your home environment. There's no strangers coming in and out. And that's a really beautiful thing, because, at the hospital, it can be people coming on shift, coming off shift. You could see a dozen or more people during your labor process, which is a very private thing, that, we're animals at the end of the day and can really impact our birth process. So then I just wanted to talk really quickly about COVID and the coronavirus and how that's changed my practice and practices within the community. So typically, if a client of mine begins labor at home and ends up needing to go to the hospital, I would stay with them, and I would be their advocate at the hospital, making sure that they know what their choices are, interacting with the hospital staff, and making sure that the situation as good of a plan B as possible. And unfortunately, with the coronavirus, I am no longer going to be allowed to go with my clients to the hospital. I haven't had this situation come up yet, which I feel really lucky, but I know it eventually will. And yeah, it's just obviously something I'm dreading, but yeah, just thinking of ways that I can remain supportive in terms of phone and video chat and that kind of stuff. And then, I've just had tons of people contacting me lately wanting to switch to a home birth or thinking about a home birth. And it's been pretty wild and very fun and exhausting. So yeah, if anyone listening or anyone is interested in just learning about how things could maybe be different at home than the hospital right now in the era of this pandemic, I'm always happy to answer questions for people. And if I don't have any availability for their birth, I'm always happy to refer them to other great midwives in the community. Okay, well, I think I'm getting close to my time. Sorry, I was so nervous that I was going to talk too long.
No, that was great. I loved hearing everything you had to say. And when we started this morning, back when we were drinking coffee, we were talking about who we were excited to hear from today. And I said that I just know that things are changing so quickly for home birth midwives right now. And I was really looking forward to hearing you talk about it. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been very funny for all of us who, we're kind of this fringe movement, alternative movement. Only about, I think it's still 2 to 3% of Oregonians anyways have home births every year. And now all of a sudden, just having this explosion of interest, we're like, who, us? So it's been great, really bizarre.
Yeah, that is awesome. We have a note here from Meg. She says, one of my favorite parts of having a midwife for my prenatal care is feeling like part of a family rather than a folder on a shelf.
Oh,
that was really lovely.
Yeah, it's, I think, the last thing I was just going to mention is that it's such a worthwhile investment to, in my opinion, attempt a home birth. You know, it doesn't work out for every single person because, again, you know, working with nature. But I always have clients, even if they end up at the hospital, really reflect on how the prenatal care, the amazing postpartum support made it still, you know, really, really worthwhile. And so that's always my goal. I can never guarantee a birth outcome, but I can hope to be as supportive and amazing for people throughout the whole process. No matter if we have a baby in an hour in the kitchen on the floor, or if we have a cesarean after a 4-day labor, you know,
Yeah.
everyone's birth experience is valid and they still deserve great prenatal and postpartum care.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally agree. Well, thank you for being here with us today, Liz. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have fun.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to throw Liz's info up on the screen for everybody. If you have questions that didn't get answered today or that you think of later, this is a great way to talk to Liz about that.